Hello, 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 hello. Hey, this is Warren Redley. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to talk about Tesla Robotaxi and a question I think a lot of people aren't asking in the right way, but they're asking, which is, are we there yet? Is Robotaxi about to start? Is Robotaxi about to scale? When does Robotaxi hit what some people are calling an inflection point, where there's enough Robotaxis out there that it starts to really affect Tesla stock? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a couple other things with Tesla. We're going to talk about some other things with tech in general. I'm going to get a very mildly political at the end. There's a lot of hot political stuff. I'm much more aggressive politically on the X platform if you follow me, WR4NYGov. But tonight, or this morning for you, I'm going to limit myself and I'm just going to ask you to think about a question. Hello, Craig. Hello to Mark and Mark. I don't know if B is there, but hello to everybody on in the chat. There's a live chat if you're watching this live. So, first thing is, are we there yet? Well, there's some big news this week. Full unsupervised robotaxi ride in Austin. Joe Tetmeyer, if you're not familiar with Joe is a guy who's been flying drones over Giga Texas and I think a couple other spots like the lithium refinery to sort of monitor the progress Tesla had building Giga Texas and then building other things, and basically became a beloved figure in the Tesla fan base. So we are doing well, thank you. Um, yeah, Mark Plot says this line, snow initially all at once. That's a line they've been saying. It's not clear what they mean. But so we had the first full unsupervised robotaxi ride. There's been a couple. Here's another one. And Elon says, just started robotaxi drives in Austin with no safety monitor in the car. Congrats to the Tesla AI team. If you're interested in, and if Elon often uses an event like this to try to recruit more engineers to come to Tesla to work on, say, Optimus over here, which is going to be more challenging than solving self-driving because Optimus has to handle much more complex spaces and the cars don't manipulate objects. Optimus is going to manipulate objects. And then Optimus is probably going to need better understanding of verbal commands. E for Electric is trolling Tesla again. Yeah, Alex and I had kind of a falling out. Philip and Boca Raton. Wow, I haven't been to Boca Raton in quite a long time. I lived in Boca Raton, for those who don't know, for 10 or 11 years. Brooke, I'll talk about Elon and Larry Fink later. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but if you ask me again, I'll address it. I'll just say quickly, I don't think Elon said anything particularly new, other than I think he pushed back Robotaxi. So we'll see about that. So there's this website called Robotaxi Tracker, which is tracking the deployment of robotaxis in both San Francisco and Austin, or Silicon Valley and Austin, Bay Area. I don't think this is the number of active vehicles. I think it's the number of vehicles that they're tracking that have been used as robotaxis. So that's an important distinction. But the fleet is growing. Is this meaningful growth? Does it matter? I don't know, but there's apparently 240 vehicles that are or have been in the robotaxi fleet so far. That is a far cry from where it needs to be in order for robotaxi to actually matter. Here's Ashok, who is the director of Tesla's FSD AI team. Robotaxi rides without any safety monitors are now publicly available in Austin, starting with a few unsupervised vehicles mixed in with the broader robotaxi fleet with safety monitors, and the ratio will increase over time. Now, this just happened, right? Like 2 days ago. So over time, it's more than 2 weeks. It's going to take time for the ratio to change to being more empty cars. So I think that's something we got to wrap our heads around. Okay, and the question, which Mark Plot, hit on, was, it's slow initially and then all at once. So there's this theory that at some point Tesla's just going to all of a sudden roll out a whole bunch of robo taxis, and we're not there yet. I don't know about a rally, Mark. I haven't heard that. So, Joe Bhakti, this is the thing that motivated this topic for this week's live stream. Was Joe, who I like and I follow and I generally agree with on a lot of things, says nearly 9 months ago I predicted the inflection point for Tesla Robotaxi will be April 2026. I reiterate my prediction. This is 3 days ago. As the currently still most likely outcome, 1,800 full-time Robotaxi equivalents. The odds that it happens earlier drop off much more than the odds it happens later. 80% chance it happens between April and October, and 90% chance it happens in 2026. So I don't agree with Joe about the timing. And I don't agree with Joe that 1,800 is a meaningful number. right? We're at 240 now. So 5x, 6x. I'd have to run the numbers in my head what that works out to, but that's in the ballpark of 5 or 6x. I don't think that's enough to push the inflection point. The question is, what is going to make people outside our bubble? Hi, Jim Whitehead, what is going to make people outside our bubble recognize there's something special about Tesla stock? And I don't think 1,800 full-time robotaxi equivalents is it. I'm going to give you, I've been talking about this for a while, but I just want to stress this again. I think the inflection point is 10,000 full-time robotaxis, not 10,000 robotaxis in the fleet that aren't acting full-time, not 1,800 robotaxis that are, part-time, but 10,000 full-time Tesla robotaxis with no human operator, safety operator, whatever. And I think there's a less than 50% chance we see that before the end of this year. Before Q4. Okay. The reason Q4 matters is if you're looking at Tesla stock price, the fact that they have a certain number of vehicles in the fleet doesn't translate to the normies outside our bubble. Yeah, Jim Whitehead says it. The Wall Street bean counters want to see revenue. I don't think it's just Wall Street. I think it's Main Street. I think 99% of the market doesn't understand where this is going. If you follow me, if you follow Stephen Mark Ryan, if you follow Dave Lee, if you follow Cern Basher, if you follow Herbert, we all think optimists, there's going to be a billion optimists running around making Tesla tons of money, right? But they don't see that. They don't see 10 million robotaxis, 100 million robotaxis. They see a stunt. And they don't even see it. It's like they're not even aware of it. Just because we keep seeing it in our bubble doesn't mean people outside are seeing it. What's going to make investors see it is when it shows up in financial statements. So if it doesn't happen before Q4 2026, as in we don't have 10,000 robotaxis generating revenue in Q3, right? The Q3 numbers are reported in Q4 in October, right? The Q4 numbers aren't reported till 2027. So if in Q4 of 2026, Tesla hits 10,000 robotaxis, driverless, no safety monitor, running full-time, generating revenue, then that number appears in mid-January, late January of 2027. We're waiting, we've got our investor call coming up in a few days here. That's how long it takes to get the results from Q4. So, and I just don't see 1,800 being a sufficient number. Let's suppose there were 1,800 full-time driverless robotaxis. Well, how much revenue does that generate? How much profit does that generate? Is it enough to get a line in a financial statement? That's the thing that I think triggers the game, right? And I think 10,000 is sufficient. 10,000 robotaxis making $50,000 a year in gross profit is $500 million in gross profit for a year, $125 million for a quarter. I think that's the point where it might get its own revenue line, its own profit line. When that happens and people can see it and they say, okay, we now have some numbers to wheel. We know there's 10,000 robotaxis. We know this is how much they're generating. And we can see a path to 1 million robotaxis, 10 million robotaxis, 100 million robotaxis. That's what I think. And so I'm not saying that Joe is wrong. I'm saying I disagree with him. I don't see 1,800 being sufficient to drive a result in the financial statement that wakes up Wall Street investors, Main Street investors, people outside our bubble. And that's the critical point I wanted to get across in this video. We're going to talk about some other things. Let me just look in the chat to see the average car owner still does not know how good FSD is now. It's like a big secret. Yeah, I mean, again, if you're in the bubble, you see it. If you're outside the bubble, you don't. Jim says, sometimes I hold up my hands and say, look, ma, no hands. Yeah. New parts will be a problem. I don't know that new parts will be a problem. We'll see about that. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mark. Okay, so covering that, I just want to stress this for those of us focused on the future. And this is what Brooke said about what Elon was talking about. Brooke asked about what Elon talked about at the Davos event. And what I heard, maybe you heard differently, was I heard Elon saying that widespread robotaxi in the US is not until the end of 2026. That's what I heard. And that's, I think, optimistic Elon. So I don't know what he means by a widespread robotaxi, right? We certainly didn't get more than 2 cities by the end of 2025. We are in January of 2026, and we don't have more than two locations yet. I don't know when. But for those of us focused on the future, Austin Robotaxi is one more small step for AI, for real world AI, but it's not a giant step for Tesla stock, right? Tesla stock, it doesn't matter until it scales, until that scale is visible, until that scale is showing up in financial statements. I'm already there. Like I think the stock is trading, I don't know, 450 or something like that, 430, 440. I think the stock is worth 2,500 today, right? I'm not selling unless I have to sell because I have expenses, right? I think the stock is worth 2,500 or more, but I'm in the bubble. People outside the bubble don't see it. Any idea what city scales next? I don't know. I think there's been reports of it being seen in maybe Arizona. Hello, B. Elon said so many different new parts. I didn't see that. Um, I think Cybercab is very new. There, I didn't include it in my slides for this presentation, but there's a Tesla posted some pictures of Cybercab in some far northern place dealing with winter, showing that Cybercab is going to be able to handle winter conditions, which I don't think is a big surprise. Um, so Elon, as I heard him, you can check it out for yourself. I thought I heard Elon say that widespread robotaxi end of 2026. That sounds like an admission it's not happening before the end of 2026. And maybe it won't really happen by the end of 2026. And if you followed me, I'm pushing the result. I think we start to see, I think the stock moves in 2027. I think it's possible it moves in 2026. I'm not saying it won't, as in moves up, right? And I can't say it won't move because of macro. I can't say sales won't go up because all of a sudden FSD purchases go up or consumers start to buy FSD. But I don't think those moves are going to be significant enough to make the stock move significantly. What makes the stock move significantly is when the market gets Robotaxi. And I don't see the market getting Robotaxi until 2027. Unless, like Mark Plott said, unless it's slowly then all at once, and all at once happens in Q3. If it happens in Q3, if we go from 500 Robotaxis in Q2 to 50,000 Robotaxis in Q3, then yeah. But I don't see that. I did think the big news is that this is from Davos again. Tesla and SpaceX are each planning to produce massive solar soon, as in within 3 years. That's great for the teams. It's great for shareholders. It's great for fans, but it's not enough. If I'm trying to remember the number that he said, I think it was maybe 100 gigawatts each of solar a year. That's way behind China, and nobody else in America is making solar. And as far as I know, people aren't really buying solar from China, which is the only other country that makes solar in significant volume because of the tariffs. And I generally support our president with some caveats. I don't support his tariffs on solar. I don't think that makes sense. We don't make solar. Why are we tariffing solar? Why are we tariffing a product we don't make that we could use to improve our energy situation? I don't know. Oh, Will, that's a good question. Should you buy a Tesla with FSD while you still can to use in the future Robotaxi network or not? I didn't think to include that, but I definitely want to talk about that. I've definitely been thinking about that question. So I have a particular situation. I'm in Thailand. I have a Model 3 in America that has FSD already, and I have a Model Y here. I didn't get FSD because FSD doesn't work in Thailand. So do I buy FSD on the hope that at some point the Thailand government is going to approve FSD? And they've rejected Starlink. Do I think that the Thai government is going to approve FSD? And am I going to be living in Thailand 5 years from now by the time it matters? I think that on one of your questions, putting your Tesla into the future Robotaxi network, I'm not confident that's going to happen. And thank you, Karsten, for being here and for courage. Yes, please like the video, please share, please subscribe, etc. I'm not confident that I will put it a different way. I think the bulk of the Tesla Robotaxi network is going to be Tesla-owned vehicles, or in certain cases, Tesla will partner with large fleet owners. I'll give you an example, maybe Hertz Rental Car as a possibility. Tesla partners with large fleet owners, and those are the two main sources of robotaxis. I would think it's just Tesla, but maybe they partner with fleet owners. Maybe there's countries where they're not allowed to own them themselves, and they partner with someone. And you see Tesla being the primary owner of the vehicles. Will they allow us to put our vehicles in the Robotaxi network? I think so. Ashok was I think it was Ashok, or maybe it was Vaibhav, was sort of iffy about it on one of the recent presentations. Like, well, we have to figure out, because they don't want you to put your crappy 2018 Model 3 that's got, ripped seats in the Robotaxi network. They want new cars that are in good shape in the Robotaxi network. So that's going to be tricky. Um, Waste of time to buy it now in Thailand. By the time they agree to allow it, the car will be old. It might be 2 years away. I don't know. Unless Tesla insurance is covering vehicles in Robotaxi fleets, I doubt individuals could afford it. Tesla will cover if the car is driving on itself. Then I, as a lawyer, if my client gets injured by that vehicle, I'm suing Tesla because Tesla has more money than your insurance. The Tesla's on the hook. Oh, thanks, Tom. Tom is here. I think Tom has a different opinion of me. But Tom, in case you missed it, Tom Nash is in the. If you don't follow Tom Nash on X and on YouTube, please follow Tom Nash. He's in the chat right now. I think Tom thinks that Tesla's going to start happening soon. Tom, what I said earlier in this video, I'll just pop back to it, is Joe Bhakti talked about the Tesla inflection point being April 2026. There's this moment when robo-taxis hit like 1,800 vehicles in the fleet, and that's going to cause the stock to take off. I don't think so. I think the number is 10,000 full-time robo-taxis with no safety monitor, no human operator, no Tesla employee in the vehicle. And I think that doesn't happen until we don't see the result until 2027. So if you have a different opinion on that, I'd love to see it in the chat. But I just want that's the primary point of the video is I think the inflection point is not until then. I don't think the stock moves this year unless this happens sooner, because I don't think 1,800 robotaxis is enough to drive meaningful numbers in the financials. But 10,000 is. 10,000 is ballpark $500 million a year in gross profit. And $500 million a year in gross profit is enough that I think it would get a line in the financials. So, but 2026, I don't want to say the stock's not going to move at all. I think we have good macro news. I think we've had some good macroeconomic news. That might drive the stock up. If FSD gets good enough that people start buying more Teslas, maybe that pushes the sales up a little bit and pushes the stock up a little bit. I haven't seen any hints of that, right? Like it certainly hasn't happened yet. So that's the crucial point I was making here in this video. But I think, the big news from Davos, Tesla and SpaceX planning to produce massive solar soon. That's a critical element for the success of the U.S. economy. Thank you, Tom. How many full-time robotaxis does Tesla need to have by end of year to be considered successful? I don't care. I want them to have as many robotaxis as they think is appropriate. The question isn't whether they're successful or not this year. They're successful because they're making progress and it's growing. The question is, when do we see it start to scale to more? We're 240 now. Tom probably missed this. Others probably missed this. We're at about 240 vehicles in the fleet. That doesn't mean they're active on a daily basis, right? When I say 10,000, I mean 10,000 active on a daily basis robotaxis. I don't think we have intervention data from Tesla in Austin. I don't think we're going to get that. So I hope that answers some questions. So moving on here. You see people constantly criticizing Tesla this way, that way, the other way. I think Zach Dimwit or whatever, criticized Robotaxi at some point. But this guy, Oliver Alexander, I see this stuff and I just laugh. He says, Tesla's having an absolute shocker of a Q1 in Europe so far. Sales down 55% from 2025. He wrote this on January 22nd. Probably January 21st, his time. That's less than 3 weeks. Quarter's 13 weeks. We don't know if they just happened to ship cars to another location that quarter and Europe just didn't get its shipment yet. You can't judge a quarter on the first 3 weeks. It's just idiotic. And so people are making these judgments like, oh, sales were down in Belgium last month. Really? This has been endless in the Tesla world. Now, the reality is, look, sales haven't been great. Tesla is not driving to be a sales company. It'll be much easier for Tesla Robotaxi to scale versus any other potential competitor. This is 100% true. Waymo is not prepared to scale. Waymo doesn't make its own vehicles. Waymo doesn't have the sensor suite. You need to have billions of miles of data on a consistent system. Tesla's had a consistent system since roughly 2017, 2018, generating more data, analyzing more data, understanding that data. Nobody else has really gotten that flywheel rolling yet. So everybody's at least 5 years behind. Ascendant says our current Teslas probably won't meet the current hardware requirements of robotaxis, including minor hardware such as wind wiper fluid spray for all FSD cameras. I don't think hardware is going to be the issue. They can offer a retrofit kit. But the issue is, if you're Tesla and you're running a robotaxi fleet, do you want to be dependent on Warren deciding today whether I want to put my vehicle in the fleet? They can't depend on us to run the robotaxi fleet. They need to have Tesla's own baseline vehicles. And then they might have something where you get a text, hey, if you put your vehicle in the fleet now, we're doing surge pricing, right? There's a lot of demand right now. We'd really appreciate if you put your vehicle in the fleet, and we're going to be paying this much extra for it, right? That's the role of us. That's our role in this world. It's not we're putting our vehicles in the fleet full time. Maybe early on, but in the long run, they can't depend on us. It can't be them depending on the Warrens and the Marks to make it work. When Optimus bots become common, will the laws require a serial number like license plates? So if someone's bot causes damage, they know who to blame and sue. I don't think so. I mean, we don't have that it's consumer electronics. We don't have that for consumer electronics now. When do they replace non-robos on the road? It's gonna when robotaxis scale to the millions, then human drivers start getting displaced. Human drivers start choosing to live a robotaxi life rather than own their own vehicle because it costs them less in some cases. It takes them less time. It's more convenient. There will still be people like me who are going to continue to own cars because I have too much money, but lots of people will drop car ownership. Car ownership isn't as burdensome in terms of time and money in Thailand. Insurance is cheap and it doesn't take that much time to do the things you do in America. Tesla's working on FSD software for hardware 3. There was a patent out. I think I talked about that in a recent video that some people are interpreting as it's going to make it easier for Tesla to run the latest models on hardware 3. We'll see about that. Once sleep in the back mode is enabled, there's nothing to stop people privately robotaxiing their own cars, is there? You have to get approval from Tesla to put your vehicle in the robotaxi fleet. How does the consumer find your car? You have to be part of the network. I suppose you could do it through Uber if Uber allows you to, but it's not the same thing. So I just wanted to hit that point that this is the typical nonsense you'll see from Tesla haters, is like you'll cherry pick this one particular moment and say it means something it doesn't. I want to turn to a more general topic about the economy. So there's this guy Nick Huber. He's been posting a bit on he posts a lot on X, and he posted this post and it just kind of annoyed me. I believe he owns storage units, self storage places, and that's how he's made his money, and that's good business. Congratulations. He says, I can't imagine having 30 to 40% of my net worth in big tech equities right now. Well, he's got his money in commercial real estate, these self-storage places that probably pay him like 10, 12% return on investment, right? He's making good money on his business. So why would he put his money in big tech equities? But he says this AI bubble is going to pop and carnage will ensue. I'm sure if Tom's still here, he's probably cracking up right now. I'm very bearish on Nvidia, Tesla, Palantir, Apple, Google, TSMC, AMNZ. I think he means Amazon, Meta right now. There's no way these companies can live up to their valuation. I have a slightly different opinion with Tesla and Nvidia on that one. 30% correction the next 18 months, more in Nvidia. Well, is it going to go up 60% before it drops 30%? He thinks that it's going to correct more in Nvidia. Data center developers and owners going to go bankrupt too. So should be obvious I don't agree with him. I currently have significantly more than 90% of my net worth in Tesla and Nvidia, just those two. I haven't persuaded myself to invest in Google, which would be my second bet, my second best guess in the AI model game after Grok and XAI is Google Gemini, simply because Google Gemini is so fast. I find Google Gemini pretty good. I'm going to talk about ChatGPT briefly. Oh, I don't think I included that. Did I? Oh, got one more thing to include. Let's talk about this now so I don't forget. I have been using ChatGPT. Where is it? Okay. This is an app that I am building. I tried using Grok and it didn't work for me. And I think I tried using Gemini and it didn't work for me. So I tried ChatGPT and it's been working very well at helping me build this app. This is just like the fun little, I'm not selling this, at least not yet. I don't think any of my viewers are going to buy this app, but this is to help me learn to read Thai. And this will also work for Japanese. So right now the topic list has 3 topics. and you choose a topic and you choose an article or a chat conversation, and you get the Thai text on one side and you get English, either literal or translation or meaning version on the other side. I used to use books, Easy Spanish Reader, Easy French Reader, to help me improve my Spanish and French. And I think this is a good way for me to learn Thai. And if it works for me, maybe it'll work for other people. And have an easy setting, medium setting, hard setting, and then chats, which are conversations. These are all slightly populated in my app already. There's a play button, so it speaks the words. There's a stop button to stop speaking the words. And there's a copy button, so you can copy the text of the Thai article and then paste it and say Google Translate to look at it yourself. So I wanted to mention this because this is amazing, right? I'm creating an app that's actually going to be useful for me to learn Thai and Japanese. I'm going to use this for Japanese. I don't think this works as well for French or Spanish. That's a long conversation. It might work for Chinese, but I don't know Chinese well enough to know. But I think this works really well for Thai and Japanese. If it doesn't work for beginners, it's like you have some basic knowledge, the letters, right? The characters in the alphabet. I know most of them anyway, and reading this helps you learn. So the fact that I'm a chimp, and I to be fair to myself, I've been writing code. I've written code since the mid 1970s in middle school, right? Basic, Pascal in university. Um, I've written some Python. I've written HTML and PHP, right? I've done some coding along the way, but this is way over my head. I'm a chimp, and ChatGPT is helping. This works. This functions as is right now. We need to update the topics to create more articles, but this works right now. It's really cool. So I would encourage people to consider, what would I want to build to help me do something in my life, help me learn something in particular. I think is one of the strengths of it. And then talk to Grok or Gemini or ChatGPT. A lot of people talk about Claude Code, and see if you can build an app. I'm doing this in Mac OS. I may transfer it to iOS or something else later if I get somewhere. I don't think the customer base for this is very large. This is 5,000 people want to buy this, maybe 10,000. Right? I'm not retiring on this. I'm not going to be able to buy a whole lot of Tesla stock on this, but it's a fun project, and I feel I have tremendous joy in seeing it work, seeing it improve. So I would encourage people to take a look at that. I'm sorry, I went off on that tangent, but so this guy thinks that there's an AI bubble, and I'm like, we haven't scratched the surface of where AI is going. The valuation of Tesla. Like, if you put Cybercab on the road at a 20 cent per mile cost, selling rides at $1 a mile, like currently Robotaxi's prices are really low. They can't, once they go to scale, they're not going to be able to sustain those low prices because the demand will be too high. People will be waiting. There's already people complaining they can't get a ride, right? There's no Robotaxi available, right? If you're going to have that business running at scale, you have to have vehicles available. If your price is too low, there's too much demand, you don't have enough vehicles available. So there's going to have to be some kind of dynamic pricing. And my prediction is the price average will be more than $1 a mile. So if you're running Cybercab at 20 cents a mile, and maybe it's 30 cents a mile per paid mile because some of the miles are unpaid, you're making 70 cents a mile in gross profit. Probably 100,000 miles a year, you're making $70,000 a Cybercab. 10 million Cybercabs, you're at $700 billion in gross profit. So I think the valuation story with Tesla, and it looks like we're not far from that. And then this guy is even more valuable. And this guy's not very far away. I think we're going to see Optimus in some small volume in 2027. Not necessarily out in the real world, not in your house, not in your neighborhood, but in warehouses. My prediction is Pepsi Frito-Lay becomes one of the first customers for Optimus because they're one of the first customers for Semi. So they got a good working relationship. Maybe some other companies that they have a good work. SpaceX will use them, right? Yeah, SpaceX isn't isn't his list because it's not a publicly traded company. Nvidia, the demand for Nvidia's hardware is off the charts. They can't make enough to satisfy demand. Elon is talking about building a fab not because he doesn't like Nvidia, because they just can't make enough chips for his demand. I predicted Nvidia will partner with Tesla on that. That's a long conversation, but so that's where that's going. So I think that the future, or let's go back to his post. NVIDIA, Tesla, Palantir. So I never claimed to understand Palantir. Tom is big on Palantir. I'm not going to touch that one. I don't know where Palantir's growth story is. I've never understood it. Apple, I'm not sure about. Google has, it's harsh to say it because I think Google and ChatGPT, I think their AIs are still woke, but Gemini's fast. Google Gemini is fast. It's pretty good. I still use Grok primarily. But when Grok is crotchety slow for whatever reason, I go to Gemini and it's just fast. It's good and it's fast. I think in general, almost all my I have 10 conversations a day with Grok and one with Gemini, right? And then once a week with ChatGPT, except for my current programming thing, once a week with ChatGPT. Apple signed a contract to use Gemini for the time being. Yeah, even Elon says that Google is doing well. So it's not like that. So that's silly. TSMC has essentially unlimited demand for their chip manufacturing. Amazon, I don't claim to know. Meta, I don't claim to know. But the idea that NVIDIA is going to have a huge correction, they can't make enough chips. They have to charge outrageous prices because they can't make enough chips. It's just crazy. They would have to be and we can see AI working with Tesla. Anybody who drives FSD can see the improvement, right? I'm not even driving it. I can see it from a distance, right? We know Optimus is coming. If you understand where Optimus is going, it's like Japan has massive labor shortages. Japan's going to buy millions of Optimus. Millions. The implications of this when, not if, Robotaxi makes Waymo and Co. obsolete. I can't see a scenario where both will coexist. Waymo's dead. Waymo's dead. Waymo's dead in the water. Uber's dead in the water. Lyft is dead in the water. The Asian, I think Grab might be okay because human drivers are so cheap in Asia, unless they partner with Robotaxi somehow. But it's like human drivers are so cheap. Why would they bother? Only SpaceX has rocket fab. Yeah. Okay. So what else did I want to talk about? We did the bubble. Okay. So along those lines, XAI. This is Motorhead. Motorhead is one of the classic Tesla Q guys, right? Longtime Tesla hater, longtime Elon hater. And he reposted this post, which is probably why I saw it, because I think I still follow him. He said, I'm trying to understand why XAI has a valuation of $250 billion. Even just looking at the EV revenue multiple, it's just insane. What moat does XAI have over its competitors? So this is a critical point, and I agree with this point to an extent. I don't think any of the AI models have the classic moat, the big models, Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, whatever. I don't think a DeepSeek, I don't think any of them has a moat today. They're all large language models. They're all making predictions. They're all multimodal models. They're developing other capabilities. The advantage XAI has is not a moat. The advantage they have is execution speed. XAI has built the first gigawatt AI data center. They're going to have 1.5 gigawatts within a few months. They have plans to build more. Elon's teams move faster at deploying more hardware to be able to develop AI faster. That's it. Gemini sets my phone alarm. I like that. I should try that. Uber's a dead man walking, 100%. Did Elon? I don't know if Elon pushed back Optimus because I don't think he was very aggressive on Optimus timeline in the first place. I think they're going to start pilot production of Optimus soon, but I don't think he pushed Optimus sales until at the earliest 2027. And I think really any meaningful sales would be 2028 or later if I heard him. And I think he's been consistent. I think he's been reasonably consistent on that. Brad Munchkin in the chat. Brad Munchkin. I forget what his name is. My only big FSD issue is that it fails to use map data when changing roads to set the correct speed limit. You wouldn't believe the map issues I have with Tesla navigation. That's not FSD really. That's navigation, I think. XAI will have a bigger hammer soon than anyone else. Yeah, it's just they have this. They're executing their speed. It's the speed of execution, and we see it in the hardware and the deployment of the Colossus AI data center. What we don't see is that there's a lot of other things they're doing fast. Don't forget, they started behind, and they basically caught up and they moved ahead. I think they would agree that they're behind Claude Code on AI for code. My gut hunch, based on my own limited experiences, they're behind ChatGPT on code. But I think there's a version of Grok for code that I haven't seen. Um, I don't know how to access it yet. So I just think, it's moat is the wrong term. Sometimes when it comes to Elon's companies, it's not a moat. It's just move faster than everybody else. Don't be afraid to break things and get a lead. They do have an advantage in that they have this live data stream from X that they have access to that nobody else has. Google has Google Search, access to Google searches. Now, my Google search volume is down like 90%. As people use AIs more, Google search volume is going to decline. My YouTube viewing is down. So Google is training Gemini on YouTube and I will say I think the quality of content is declining on this is an opinion, right? Because I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot. I'm on X a lot more, but I do watch a fair amount of YouTube. Mainly, I'm watching like NBA highlights, but I watch a couple and strength training videos. Although I'm kind of gotten tired of strength training videos. I think the quality of content overall on YouTube is declining a bit, and I think the quality of content on Facebook is in the toilet. So I don't see how Meta's going to compete because they've got a lot of data, but it's crap data. I think X has very high quality data, and they also have community notes sort of correcting the data, and they're now training their AI to do community notes, which is, if you want to seek truth, learning how to correct statements on X is a good way of doing it. So I think there's that question: where are you getting more data? XAI is going to have access to Tesla's real world AI data. Probably, I assume they're going to have access to that, so that's going to be a big deal. Jim says I have deep conversation about the frontiers of physics, string theory. XAI is very impressive. Yeah, I have very involved conversations primarily with Grok about medical issues, about just and when I say medical, like longevity stuff. I share. Actually, it was better. What was I doing? I got a blood test up. It's called a micronutrient blood test. Just checking. This is one of those crazy things. Crazy Warren does. Is I'm always getting these packages in Thailand to check on my health. So I got a micronutrient test to see what my vitamin levels and mineral levels were. And I fed the PDF to ChatGPT and it choked. And Grok read it. So Grok did better with a PDF. I was surprised that ChatGPT choked on that. I don't know if I asked Gemini that one. AI can completely replace Yahoo and Google homepage. Yeah, I'm just telling you, like my Google searches are down like 90+%. How about turning off standard autopilot? Good question. So I just don't think that's a big deal. I think people, I'm not concerned about how Tesla handles selling cars in the next year or two. Everybody's obsessed with, well, how are they going to sell cars? If you're obsessed with it as a vehicle owner, okay. If you're thinking about buying a new Tesla and you want standard autopilot, okay. If you're buying a new Tesla before February 14th, you probably should buy FSD. If you're in a country that has FSD, not for putting on the Robotaxi network, because you're going to want to own a car that drives itself. And you're not going to have to pay a monthly subscription fee for it. That's a detail I probably should have mentioned in the video at the start. Elon said they're going to stop selling FSD at a full price for ownership on February 14th. They're going to switch to subscription only, and he said the subscription price will rise. So right now it's $99 a month. It's going to go up. You can buy it for $8,000. Now, if you do the math, $8,000 at $99 a month, it takes 5, 6, 7 years to pay off. But if the price of FSD goes to $499 a month, then that $8,000 pays off fast. And then the question is, how much is it worth it to you to have a car that drives itself all the time? I don't know. Was the blood test worth it, or was everything as expected? It gave me actionable information that changed what supplements. I was taking a B complex. I stopped taking the B complex. I got a B12 instead of the B complex. It reassured me that I was doing the right thing by taking magnesium. I don't think that. I think there's a couple other details in there that I'm looking at. Yeah, and then there's a couple other things I'm checking out. So that's a long conversation, but so yeah, I have found actionable information when I do these packages. When I first did this in Bangkok, when I first got here, I had low iron, which was probably sports anemia because I just work out so much. But I got that checked out. I took iron supplements for a while. It went away. I discovered, my kidney function is a little low. It's not disease, but I would call it suboptimal. So that made me aware. And like, if I'm ever going to get like a radiology screening, I'm going to do low contrast or no contrast rather than do a contrast because the contrast can affect your kidneys. Not likely to, but it can. What's my prediction on Cybercab reaching 1,000 units a week? Q4 this year or early next year is when they reach 1,000 production a week. Going into service is another question entirely. They're going to start manufacturing in April, but does that mean they're going to start pilot production and they're going to make, 10 a week and then 100 a week? And then by, Q4, they're making 1,000 a week? Maybe. We'll see. I eat plenty of beef and pork. So I eat a healthy and diverse diet. I get a lot of good quality stuff in my diet. Okay. So just covering that point, I did want to mention Bradford. If you haven't checked it out, Bradford did a great video. I think it's on the Rebellionaire channel or it's on his Rebellionaire account on X, where he talked about sort of like the mindset that a lot of Tesla investors have. And he's sort of, I'm sort of past the stages that he was talking about, but I thought it was it's like, I got chills listening to him talk about the way I used to think about things. So I posted this, Bradford said, or Elon said that the most valuable company in 10 years could be valued at $100 trillion. Which Elon company do you think this would be? I don't think Elon said it would be an Elon company, but he probably meant it. And people are speculating Tesla and SpaceX. I think Neuralink will be the most valuable company that Elon has ever created. And I explain why in this post. Everyone is going to want this. Everyone is going to want this. This is going to be better. It's going to be 10 times better than an iPhone. Maybe 100 times better than an iPhone. You don't have to carry it. It's going to be insanely useful, right? So call it 100 million new customers a year, paying $10,000 each. Where are they going to get 100 million new customers a year? There's 8 billion people on the planet. It would take 80 years at 100 million customers a year to reach 8 billion. Even if you say only 1 billion people are going to be able to afford it, it takes 10 years to get there. And the average person is probably going to upgrade their Neuralink every 4 years. You do the math on, all right, you got 1 billion customers and they upgrade every 4 years. That's 250 million more customers on top of the 100 million you're doing. That's 350 million customers a year paying $10,000 a pop. And then you have an app store. I know Kung Fu. I don't know what you'll get out of the app store, but an app store is likely to happen. And that's going to be even more valuable than selling the Neuralinks. It's absolutely batshit crazy. So Dean, who's a good guy, says, why do all the Tesla fanboys do this? They make all these outlandish predictions without any current evidence to support it. I disagree with that. Neuralink is in people's brains. It is working. I think the path forward is pretty straightforward. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of execution, but they are tapping into people's brains now. It is working. It is working well, and it will improve. I don't, they're about to start helping blind people see and deaf people hear. Those are in the works already, right? And there's so much more to access in the brain to be able to help us do better. What do you mean there's no evidence? Nolan Arbaugh has evidence. There's like 20 patients that are evidence that it works. So he says, they all make these outlandish predictions without any current evidence to support it. Nobody else does this. You can do these sort of predictions with any company in the world. Like in 2036, NVIDIA will sell 100 quadrillion GPUs and make $900 quadrillion. And Micron. So first of all, I have made some outlandish predictions about NVIDIA in previous videos. I think NVIDIA is going to 1000x. I don't think that's 100 quadrillion GPUs. I have made outlandish predictions about NVIDIA. I don't follow Micron, so I don't know. He hopes I'm right because he has a decent amount of Neuralink in his private company portfolio. I have not had a good opportunity to. I'm looking for opportunities to invest in Neuralink and Boring Company. I haven't seen the right opportunity yet. That's a long conversation. I'm kind of sort of like on hold because every opportunity I see is just too many fees, too many issues. Why not just hold Tesla stock if I think Tesla stock's going to 100x? I mean, I think Neuralink's going to 1000x. But if I got to pay 30% fees on the Neuralink, and then, it's illiquid. The liquidity is a big issue with Neuralink too. Like, all right, I'm going to put $50,000 into Neuralink, or, well, it doesn't really move the needle that much if Tesla's going to 100x. Like, none of it really matters if Tesla 100x. If Tesla 20x's or 10x's, it doesn't really matter for me, right? I'm even like a 2 or 3x in the like I already have silly money. But anyway, he had this criticism that, why do Tesla fanboys do this? I was like, my response was very simply, are you new here? I've been doing this for years, right? And I think I've been over optimistic in some of my predictions, and so was Elon. And a lot of us have been wrong on a lot of things, but Cybertruck is still the coolest vehicle on the road. Model Y is the best selling vehicle in the world. Tesla has changed the landscape of EVs. China came along and started making better EVs faster than anybody expected, and they undercut Tesla's potential sales growth a little bit, maybe. There's been a lot of resistance. There's been political resistance. There's all kinds of things that have gotten in the way, but a lot of good things have happened, and a lot of good things are happening. Um, Let me look at the chat here. Let's learn this coding. If you are a long-term holder, you have to not worry so much about FSD pricing or production. They will play with pricing and test different pricing levels. In 5 years, no one will be buying a car. I'm going to say in 3 years, no one will be buying a Tesla, other than, Roadster, right? Maybe they'll sell Model S Plaid and Model X Plaid, but generally speaking, every car they make will go in the Robotaxi fleet, and normies like us won't be buying them. Tesla crew have really overhyped this driverless Robotaxi. One photo of it as chase driver behind. That's all we have. I think there's been 2 sightings of driverless Robotaxis at least. And I think it's coming. It'll grow. We'll see. Super strength, I don't know about. No way I would allow access to my brain. You can stay out. First of all, if you're using an iPhone, you're allowing access to your brain already. You just don't realize it. You just like a low bandwidth connection to your brain instead of a high bandwidth connection to your brain. Outlandish is Mary saying they'll catch up to Tesla. Yeah, anybody saying they're going to catch up to Tesla is hilarious. Large Tesla fleet owners will exist. Disagree because Tesla started a vehicle rental program. I just think I'm not saying it's likely. I think it's possible that Tesla will make a deal with someone like Hertz. And what Hertz brings to the table is they have an existing infrastructure for servicing the vehicles at the end of the day, in the middle of the day. That may add value, and it may be that there are countries that don't like Thailand will not allow Tesla or SpaceX to do Starlink in Thailand because they want it to be majority, a Thailand-owned company. So will Tesla have to make a deal with some country where they joint venture or partner with somebody who buys the fleet and runs the vehicles and cuts Tesla in on a share? That might be a business model that'll work. I'm just saying it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. My grandparents didn't want a cell phone. Yeah, I think my ex-wife's father resisted a smartphone for the longest time. Universal high income. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about universal high income. I don't buy that story, but we'll see. I want Elon to be right, but I don't know. I'm not sure I want Elon to right because I think it's a little communist. Question is in what way it becomes useless. What we want money? I don't think money becomes worthless. I don't agree with that. I think there will still be things that money will buy, like land. I think there's a really open question about where the raw materials come from for all the amazing abundance Elon talks about. We'll see. What do I think about the Starlink and XAI IPOs? So if I understand correctly, there's no Starlink IPO anymore. There's going to be a SpaceX IPO. There's been a lot of rumors about SpaceX IPO coming. I haven't seen anything about an XAI IPO yet. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I just haven't seen it yet. There's rumors of a reverse merger. There's all kinds of theories. Anyone with smartphone is cyborg already. Exactly, Mark Plot. Was at a Tesla sales center recently. Salespeople are really pushing FSD. They're 100% confident when you're showing you how to use it. Very confident. Yeah, I mean, maybe we see FSD sales go up, and that drives. If you see unit volume doesn't go up, but FSD sales go up, that's a lot of extra profit per car. Any predictions for Q4 call? Not really. I mean, I think that energy. I predicted that already. That energy went up enough that I think profits will be up. That earnings per share will be fine. But I don't have any particular predictions about what they're going to say that's going to be meaningful. I don't think we're going to learn anything terribly new. The one thing I'm looking for in the Q4 call, I don't know if we're going to get it, is will they give a projection of CapEx for next year? Are they expecting to spend $12 billion next year in CapEx? I think they're going to expect to spend more. Will they give us a number? Will it be 20 billion? I want to see a lot. The more they spend on CapEx, the more growth they're expecting quickly. Any comment on graphene development? I haven't seen any development related to batteries. I think you mean graphene batteries. I haven't seen any development in batteries that's meaningful yet. If something good comes along, then Tesla will be the biggest customer. Like the active robotaxi metric, but how are we going to be able to know when we have concurrent robotaxis? Yeah, I don't think it's an active metric. I think it's a this is the number of vehicles we've seen in the fleet, not the number that are active. Um, when I test drove my Y in May of 25, they were suggesting people use FSD for part, if not all, of the test drive. FSD supervises like level 4. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. I'm going to talk about politics for a second, and I'm going to be soft in my talk about politics. Okay. If you want to follow me on X, WR4NYGov, I'm much more aggressive in what I say about politics, but I just want to leave a thought in your head. There's this conflict going on in Minnesota right now. Minnesota state government, Minneapolis city government are refusing to, when they have a criminal alien in custody, they're refusing to turn that alien over to federal agents. This is commonly done in many states. I've seen it done in New York when I was a defense lawyer before. There are so-called sanctuary cities and sanctuary places that are refusing to cooperate with the federal government. And in Minnesota, a step beyond, I don't think it's happening as strongly anywhere else. They are the government officials, Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, others are actively encouraging people to interfere with law enforcement, federal law enforcement, enforcing federal laws, making arrests of criminal aliens. So you may think that's a good thing. Okay. And I'm just going to say this. I obviously I think that's not a good thing. And I want to stress this. Like the question is very simply this: where do you see the future of federal state relations in America if the federal government backs down? People want Tim Walz, Governor Walz, is saying that the federal government should pull ICE officers out of Minnesota. Okay, so if the federal government stops enforcing federal law in Minnesota because Minnesota is interfering with the federal government interfering with federal law, what does that mean for the future of federal state relations? So your Democrats win, and you want to mandate some vaccine. And Florida says, no, we're not going to let you bring your vaccine into Florida. Do you want the federal government to force Florida to accept your vaccine? What you're saying right now is no. And I'll take it another way. In the 1860s, we had a civil war. 600,000 people died because President Lincoln refused to let the South secede. The states wanted to go their own way. And President Lincoln said no, and 600,000 people, you're worried about, one or two people dying in the streets of Minneapolis. 600,000 people died. So was Lincoln a hero or a villain? You make your judgment. Okay? I'm not offering an opinion. If you think this isn't the question, why not? This is what's happening. State officials in Minnesota and city officials in Minneapolis and St. Paul are interfering with federal government agents enforcing federal law, which is their job under federal law. They are Governor Walz is referring to ICE agents as Gestapo. They're not Gestapo. It's absurd, the language he's using. Now, do you agree with immigration policy? Fine, whatever. The voters voted for it. They got President Trump. President Trump is doing what he said. He recognized the Israeli Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He fulfilled a campaign promise. He said he was going to get rid of the aliens. He was going to close the borders. He's fulfilling his campaign promises. This is what people voted for. This is not, I voted for Trump. This is not why I voted for Trump, by the way. I voted for Trump because I want to protect Elon from the Democrats arresting Elon, right? But if you recognize that this is what the people voted for, and this is what federal law says, and this is what Obama did, and what Clinton did, and what Bush did, was enforce federal law, you have to ask yourself the question, why do you think the federal government should stop enforcing federal law because the state says no? And if you think that, then doesn't that mean you think that Lincoln was a bad president who got 600,000 innocent people killed? I don't know. I don't know how to resolve that question for you if you don't think about that question in that way. Everyone just wants to have the knee-jerk reaction. It was a good shooting. It was a bad shooting. If you're going to have these kinds of conflicts, which are being driven by the state telling people to interfere with federal law enforcement, you're going to have conflict. And when you have conflict, sometimes the cops are going to make a mistake. Do you want police to stop arresting drunk drivers because every once in a while there's a shooting in a traffic stop? Do you want police to stop writing speeding tickets? Do you want police to stop going on domestic violence calls because every once in a while they shoot an innocent husband or they shoot an innocent wife or an innocent child? Do you want police to stop enforcing laws because people might get hurt? You make up your mind. But to just say, well, there was that bad shooting, so Trump should pull all the troops out of Minnesota, it's like, no, that's not how it works. If there's a police shooting in a traffic stop, do you want police to stop enforcing all traffic laws? It doesn't make any sense. So I'd ask you to think about that question. If you're watching on X, let me know in a reply. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in a comment. If you're in the chat, let me know in a chat. We could talk about that. I'm not worried about National Guard stuff. Are we the comments I'm making on X? I'll talk about what some extreme things on X. I'm not going to do that on YouTube. I'm not going there. I just think this is a question that you got to address. If you don't address this question, I don't think you're being reasonable. And I don't think this is about whether it reaches the Supreme Court or not. This has to be resolved before the Supreme Court gets close to it. And even if the Supreme Court ruled, which they already have ruled, right? This is something the Supreme Court already settled, right? It doesn't need to go to the Supreme Court again. It's already settled by the Supreme Court that the federal government is supreme and the federal agents enforce federal law and states can't get in the way. The Supreme Court's already said it. You don't need another and the Supreme Court is majority Republican. They support Trump. If it goes to the Supreme Court, we know the result's going to be. So I just again, I'm not going to get into the extreme stuff I say on X because this is YouTube. This video is live on YouTube, and I don't get extreme on YouTube. And if you follow me on X, you're already seeing the stuff I'm saying. So the other thing I want to just mention is because when I talk on X, and as I'm talking about this here, this is very common that you get criticism. This is the stay in your lane criticism. Warren, you don't even live in this country, so put a sock in it. So let's be clear. I am a legal resident of the state of Florida in the United States of America. I happen to be in Thailand at the moment. I've been in Asia for a while. I was in Florida in October. I pay a lot of taxes. I make a lot of money and I pay a lot of taxes to the Internal Revenue Service of the United States government, the U.S. Treasury. I write big checks. Big checks. Okay? That's a long conversation why I'm paying so much in taxes. It's partly I'm paying taxes now, so I pay less later, but it's complicated. I have 2 adult children who live in the United States. I expect to spend several months a year in the United States once my wife gets her green card, which is roughly 2027. And I vote. I voted in the last election. So I have a stake in what happens in my country where I am a legal resident, where I pay taxes, where my children live, where I expect to be back in the future for a substantial amount of time, and where I vote. So don't tell me to stay in my lane. And if we're going to talk about legal issues like what happens in a police encounter, I was a criminal defense lawyer for a long time. I was a car accident lawyer. That comes up. I'm a lawyer. I'm a retired lawyer, but I've done a lot of this stuff. I know more about this stuff than other people. I know more about the Constitution than most people. I know how to ask a question like this that nobody else is thinking about. I think this is an obvious question that should be posed to anyone who advocates that ICE should withdraw from Minnesota. And no one's talking about it. I don't think this isn't like Trump propaganda. I've never seen Trump say this. I've never seen Elon say this. I've never seen anybody on the conservative side say this. I've never seen anybody else tie this to Lincoln letting the South secede. Right? This is my independent large language model generating text coming up with a different thing than everybody else is saying. So I don't think it's fair to criticize me in that way. All right. So go back here and let's just check the chat again. Last night I saw a video of the National Guard vehicles piling in Minneapolis, getting them ready to go in heavy. I don't know what's happening with that. No comment. I don't know who's in control of the National Guard. I don't think my gut is that law enforcement officials are not going to be sympathetic to politicians who say to interfere with law enforcement. That state and local law enforcement and troops, National Guard members are not going to be supportive and are not going to cooperate with a state government interfering with federal law enforcement. I don't think that's likely to happen. I think that's a very unlikely outcome. I don't think that Tim Walz is the kind of leader who inspires troops to follow him. Could be wrong. Maybe you guys see something special in him. I mean, does he follow people wearing pink hats? Do people wearing pink hats follow his leadership? Sure. Do large men with weapons follow a guy like that? I don't think so. Um, how to stimulate more personal responsibility of citizens is better than more law enforcement. Well, they're stimulating citizens to interfere with law enforcement. That's the problem. That's a big problem. Yeah, I mean, maybe you think it's a good thing, right? Maybe you think they are the Gestapo and these poor innocent criminal aliens are being, unfairly removed from their community where they've been raping people, and maybe you think that they should be raping people in your community. I don't know. Maybe you think they should be stealing money from taxpayers. I don't know. I don't understand your theory, but okay. Hopper says, I'm from the EU, so I'm confused. As I understand it, Waltz raised their National Guard. I There's a National Guard. It's a sort of reserve military, and they typically, it's like 2 weekends a month and 2 weeks a year that they go out and train. And the governor can call them up, but they do not serve the governor. They serve the U.S. military, and the head of the U.S. military is Donald J. Trump and Pete Hegseth and whatever. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the leadership of the Minnesota National Guard's on board with him, and the troops are going to follow him. I don't know. It's a more disproportional show of force. ICE needs to be posted more in more states with illegals such as California, Texas. So ICE doesn't have to be this active in Texas and Florida because Texas and Florida cooperate. They hand criminal. I think Texas deports 10 times as many or 20 times as many aliens as Minnesota. There aren't that many aliens. There's very few Latinos in Minnesota, right? There's a lot in Texas. There's a lot get deported in Texas, but the Texas local officials and state officials cooperate, and they hand over the criminals and they get rid of the criminals. All Minnesota has to do to end this conflict is start handing over the criminals. And it's literally criminals who've been arrested, who've been in court, that they're refusing to hand. This isn't like they're refusing to hand over some guy in his house. They're refusing to hand over criminals. I've been there. I've seen this in myself in a court. Okay, when it's handed over to ICE. That's what they're not doing. The ICE would be so busy with the ones they hand over, they wouldn't have time to go chase people down on the streets. Minnesota Police Department has been shrunk by a third since Walz came in crazy. I don't know if you mean Minnesota State Police or Minneapolis Police Department. It's very hard to be a police officer in a place where they tell people to interfere with law enforcement. The Gestapo are the type of people in jade churches. Absolutely, that's the brown shirts, really. Do you not think that conflicts with your libertarian and defense lawyer background? You're concerned about federal government overreach and abuse of power. So, I'll talk about that. Before, not very long ago, I supported open borders. I want to be clear, open borders did not mean the federal government going out and bringing people in. It meant not stopping people from coming in. It didn't mean bringing them in, giving them money, giving them free stuff. So the Biden administration persuaded me I was wrong about open borders because I did not anticipate that the government of the United States and the states would start giving free stuff to people who come to our country. I don't know why Western countries are doing this. I don't think Thailand does it. I don't think Japan does it. I don't know where this idea came from. China doesn't do it. I don't think Russia does. Where the idea came from, hey, let's give taxpayer money to these people who aren't citizens so that they can stay in $400 a night hotels in New York City. Like, I'm going to New York City soon. I'm going to have to pay more for a hotel because my tax dollars are being used to give free hotels to illegal aliens. Go figure. And then as the defense lawyer, I don't have a problem with people filming police. I've done that myself. Interfering with police, that's not acceptable. I've never advised a client to interfere with police. I don't think it's federal government overreach to arrest people who are interfering with police operations. I don't know what you think, how you could think differently about that. I screwed the pooch when they moved on the Hyundai plant. I don't know the details of that. My wife and I are both immigrants, so we did the look. I'm trying to get my wife into the United States. We applied for a tourist visa. They said no. I had a plan. I actually had two different plans of how I was going to bring her into the United States illegally. These are just ideas in my head. Like, I didn't take any steps whatsoever, right? We go to Mexico, we do it this way. We go to Canada, we do it this way. I know where to cross, right? And I probably should have brought her while Biden was still president. We could have gotten a free, whatever. But didn't want to bring her to the United States that way, and I want to follow the law. I'm going to assume here that the National Guard is bigger than Minnesota State Guard, so mass. I don't think that matters. I don't think Minnesota State Guard matters. These guys are not going to fight with federal agents. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see state military types, state um, police, city police. I don't see them fighting with, because those guys are the people who got the job with ICE were local cops before. These guys identify with each other. Are there exceptions? Yeah. Is there some political captain somewhere who's on the side of the nut jobs in charge? Yeah. But the average frontline cop does not want to have a conflict with a federal law enforcement agent. I want an optimist to be my best bridge partner ever. Hi, Neil. Good to see you. My Florida man. My Florida man. Optimist tool booths? Toll booth? We just get rid of tolls. Come on. Lefties want unlimited immigration to shove a vote in their hands in states that do not require voter ID. They get to control those states forever. I don't think people realize. So that's a story that Elon tells. I don't know how true. I don't think the average Democrat sees it that way. I think maybe the Democrat elites see it that way. That blows up in your face in 10 years. It's just that, politicians have very short-term outlooks. But in 10 years, they're not supporting you. They're putting their own people in, and you're getting run out. I do like the political stuff, but what did I miss for Tesla talk to become Minnesota? Hi, Free Kekistan. Kekistan, that's such a great name. I talked earlier in the video about Robotaxi and how many Robotaxis Tesla has to have in order to move the needle for Tesla stock. Joe Bhakti has been projecting 1,800 Robotaxis moves the needle. I say 10,000. We'll see. And I don't think it happens. I don't think the needle gets moved until 2027. Talked about that before. The photo, are we there yet, assumes the teen is not hooked to a smartphone 24/7. Yeah, no, the photo, the girl is just a whiny teen. It's representative of Tesla shareholders who are looking at their smartphones, checking the stock price 3 times a day, trying to figure out when the stock's going to move. And to be clear, Free Kyrgyzstan, I'm much more vocal and much more strongly opinionated on X WR4NYGov than I am here on here on YouTube today. I'm posing a question, which I'll hit this question again. How do you see the future of federal-state relations in America if the federal government stops enforcing federal law in a state because the state interferes? And along those lines, do you think Lincoln should have let the South secede? I think Free Kyrgyzstan probably thinks that Lincoln should have let the South secede. Because if you're worried about 1 or 2 people dying in the streets in Minnesota, Lincoln killed 600,000 people. 600,000 people died in the Civil War because Lincoln didn't let the South secede. Should he have let the South secede? What's your answer to that? My question wasn't about open borders, about abuse of power and overreach. Are you concerned that politicians are creating a permissive environment for federal agents to behave badly? I'm concerned that state politicians are creating an environment where federal agents carrying out their task of enforcing immigration law face interference that is a federal crime. And then they have to arrest the people who are interfering with them. I don't know. Do you, Lewis, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that it's appropriate for people to interfere with law enforcement agents carrying out enforcing federal law, federal law enforcement or state? Do you think that people should interfere with drunk driving? Like, look, I famously went to checkpoints and held up a thing in my window, refusing to roll down my window. Right? That's on this channel a long time ago. I didn't stop them from stopping other people in the checkpoints. I didn't get out of my car and push police officers around. Do you think that that's an appropriate role for citizens? And do you think government officials should encourage them to resist? As a Minnesota resident, I'm extremely disappointed in the leadership here. The ironic thing is they are doing so much damage to law enforcement generally while attacking federal agents enforcing laws. Exactly. Can someone explain why there's so much political discussion commentary in this chat? I'm interested in Tesla, that's all. So I covered Tesla earlier in the video, and I had this topic that I wanted to talk about, and I'm way less aggressive in this conversation than I am. But if you're not interested in what's happening in America, congratulations. I think you're one of like 4 people in the world who don't. I get messages from friends in Japan and Canada What's going on in America? I just read this article, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Everybody's obsessed with it. 14.4, there's a paid rioter class, 100%. Have a my politics is on X. I think YouTube is a dying platform. I'm much less active on YouTube than I was before. Um, a population of partially responsible citizens is automatically going to be more lawful, embodying the Constitution, less need for law enforcement. Sure. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus also during the war, allowed other evils like the burning of Atlanta. One can say he was a closet dictator. Yeah, so that's a question. Do you think Lincoln was wrong for doing what he did to save the Union? I don't know. This is Warren's political. So this is the tail end of Warren's live stream. We're past my bedtime. I normally go to 10 o'clock. It's 10 p.m. here in Thailand. I normally go to 10 o'clock, but I wanted to cover this briefly. I didn't expect the chat to be this lively. The chat is lively. I can assure you, if you go to WR4NY.gov, you'll see that I'm much more vocal on X than I am here on YouTube. Every prediction made by the anti-federalists about federal power using its power to increase their power happened. They were 100% correct. Yeah, no, listen, I agree that the federal government is much larger than it was supposed to be when the not only when the Constitution was created in the 1700s, but when the 14th Amendment was passed, when the major changes to the Constitution occurred in the 1800s. Federal government is well beyond the bounds that it's supposed to be, but immigration enforcement is not one of those things that's beyond the bounds. Controlling the borders has always been a federal job. SpaceX launch coming. Okay, so like I said, we're past my bedtime. I hope whichever side you were on, you will think about these two questions. How do you see the future of federal-state relations in America if the federal government stops enforcing federal law in a state because the state interferes? And do you think Lincoln should have let the South secede? Because if you're worried about one or two people dying in the streets on video and you saw it, what about the 600,000 people who died in the Civil War? Is the two people dying in the streets of Minneapolis worse than 600,000 people? I don't know how you rationalize that. Jim, the Civil War was not about slavery. I mean, it was partly about slavery, but that wasn't. It was about federal power. My favorite punching bag, Aptera, just had their share price implode. Aptera's comedy. Are they publicly traded now? I didn't even know they were publicly traded. I've so lost touch with Aptera. Oh, Will Nurse, let me just address this. Will brought this up, and I wanted to talk about this really quick. So two things. One, if you aren't using AIs for things other than just asking questions, I would encourage you to think about what could I create in terms of an app. I'm creating an app to help me learn Thai, and I will eventually make it something that other people can use to learn Thai. I'm using ChatGPT for this because Grok failed me and Gemini failed me, and I decided to try ChatGPT, and it's been extremely helpful. But I think most people would say use Claude Code, and I just didn't figure out how to. I had ChatGPT. I'm using free ChatGPT, and it's doing a great job for me. So think about making an app. About the pod car, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to an event in Thailand 2 or 3 weeks, where I will be. I'm covering an event that's got students building cars, including half of the students are building electric cars. University teams building electric cars, and I'm going to see if I can recruit somebody. I didn't include this, but the casual dress co-working cafe that's 500 meters from where I'm sitting. We have it's called a shop house. Is sort of soft open. Like we've just kind of sort of started soft open. It's a weekend right now, so it's not open, but I think we're effectively in soft open status. And it's a good place for me to provide free housing on the 3rd floor back room for a student if they just want to come work for me. And it's a good place to use as a base of operations to start building the pod car. I don't think it's a good place to build the pod car itself because I don't think we want to have lithium-ion batteries and electric motors in this space, but I can rent a place nearby and we'll use that for actually building. So I am hopeful. I've been hopeful about the pod car for a long time, so take this with a grain of salt, but I am hopeful that there will be progress on the pod car to talk about in the next few months. We'll see. I mean, I should have a much better idea by, I think, May. I think May is when they graduate in March or May or something like that. So I hopefully will have someone working for me, paying them a better than average salary for a young Thai engineering graduate, including housing on top of that, including, they don't have to commute to work because it's right there. They get to drive my Model Y once in a while. Lincoln proved that federal power going too large and still is. Reagan said the government is big, fat, and out of control, like Tip O'Neill. Okay, so I don't think I want to talk about Aptera anymore. I'm not a fan of people that defend illegals. I don't have a problem with creating a situation where it's easier to come to the United States and work for people who are not criminals, for people who are high value. Like Thailand has all kinds of programs for bringing people in. They have people who come in illegally that they get rid of. They have programs that then Malaysia, the lots of countries that have programs. It's called like high skilled, something like high skilled people that they want to bring in. There's a lot of demand for that in countries. If we're going to bring in high skilled people that are going to make America better, great. Lewis says, I'm not an American, so I don't have a dog in this fight, but as an observer, it appears the administration immediately defends actions that are not yet properly investigated. ICE could be at fault. See, you're picking on one. This is very common, Lewis. You're picking on one moment. Like every day, somewhere in the world, a police officer wrongfully kills someone. So are you, Lewis, I want to ask you this question. If you're still here, Lewis, I want you to answer this question. Do you think every time that there's a police shooting in a traffic stop, that the police should stop doing traffic stops? It's a simple question, Lewis. Do you think that? See, Lewis says, love you, buddy, take care. I think Lewis is leaving before answering that question. It's a really simple question. If you think that police should continue doing traffic stops after a police officer shoots somebody wrongly in a traffic stop, then why do you think that federal law enforcement should stop arresting criminal aliens and deporting them when there's a shooting in the process of arresting criminal aliens? I don't know what you want. Even if they come to colonize. Well, so Phil, that's the difference, right? I'm not talking people who come with high skilled labor to go work in AI companies and tech companies are not coming to colonize. Okay, but so Lewis, you say you don't think so. Okay, so where's the difference? If immigration enforcement has an occasional death, it's happened under Obama and nobody said that they should stop deporting, not nobody. The Democratic Party, the governor of Minnesota was not saying they should stop deporting people. It's a simple question. If you think that they should stop doing immigration enforcement because someone died, then they should stop doing traffic enforcement because someone died. They should stop doing domestic violence enforcement because someone died. We shouldn't have government at all. You want to get to my libertarian world, let's not have government at all, and then people do whatever they want, right? I don't think you like that world. I don't think that's what you want for the world. So take that for what it's worth. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you in particular to Mark and Jim for moderating the chat. I don't think you had a hard time of it, but and thank you somebody for letting me know about Aptera. Thanks everyone so much. You all have a good day, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.